birthday party. That's how my entire life unraveled. My name is Brittany, I'm 34 years old, and I swear to you, I never meant for things to get this bad. Our daughter Macy just turned 13. We threw a little party for her. Nothing fancy, just a few of her close friends, cake, and pizza at the house. My husband Colin, who's 41, did his usual thing. Grilling hot dogs, making small talk with the other dads, staying out of the way when the girls started playing games in the living room. Typical Colin. He's not the most involved dad, but he's steady. Reliable. A little boring, honestly, but that's a different story. The night was fine until it wasn't. I had just stepped out onto the patio to chat with one of the moms about some fundraiser nonsense, and Colin had gone inside. When I came back in, the vibe was completely off. Colin was standing in the hallway, pale as a ghost, his lips pressed into a thin line. Macy's voice was drifting from her room, loud enough that it carried over her friends' giggles. "She's not even my real dad." Macy was laughing, like she'd just told the punchline of the funniest joke in the world. "My mom said he doesn't even know." I froze. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I was going to throw up. Colin didn't look at me. He just stared at the door to Macy's room like he couldn't believe what he'd just heard. I wanted to say something, to explain, to do something, but my brain went blank. It felt like the walls were closing in. I tried to play it off. "Kids say stupid things all the time," I whispered, touching his arm. He jerked away like I'd burned him. "She probably doesn't even know what she's talking about." He turned to me, his face stony. "Does she?" he asked, his voice low and sharp. "Does she even know what she's talking about?" I didn't have an answer. Colin walked away, straight out the front door, without saying a word. The rest of the party is a blur. I don't even remember saying goodbye to the other parents. I just know I was on autopilot, trying not to completely lose it in front of Macy and her friends. When Macy finally went to bed, I sat on the couch, staring at my phone, half expecting Colin to call or text. He didn't. It was after midnight when he came back. He didn't slam the door or yell. He just walked in like he'd gone for a quick drive to cool off. That almost made it worse. He sat across from me and said, "We need to talk." I launched into damage control mode. "Colin, you know how kids are. Macy probably overheard something and twisted it into some silly story to impress her friends. She's at that age, you know? They all want to act like they know everything." He didn't say anything, just stared at me with this look I'd never seen before. It wasn't anger, exactly. It was worse. It was like he was trying to figure out who I even was. "Brittany," he said finally, his voice quiet but firm. "Is Macy my daughter or not?" I don't know what possessed me to lie. Maybe it was panic. Maybe it was habit. I'd gotten so good at dodging the truth over the years that it felt like second nature. "Of course she's your daughter," I said, my voice cracking just a little. "I don't even know why you'd ask me that." He just kept staring at me, like he could see right through me. "Then why would she say that? Why would she tell her friends that you told her I wasn't her dad?" "I don't know," I snapped, my voice a little too loud. "Maybe one of her little friends put the idea in her head, or maybe she's mad at you for not letting her get that stupid iPhone she wanted. Kids are manipulative, Colin. They say whatever they think will get a reaction." He didn't buy it. I could see it in his eyes. "Brittany," he said slowly, like he was giving me one last chance to come clean. "Is there something you're not telling me?" "No," I said too quickly. "You're being ridiculous." That was the moment everything started falling apart. He didn't yell or accuse me of lying. He just stood up, grabbed his keys, and walked out the door again. This time, he didn't come back. By morning, I was panicking. I called him, texted him, left voicemails. Nothing. I even called his sister, but she hadn't heard from him either. I spent the entire day pacing the house, replaying the conversation over and over in my head. Macy didn't seem to notice anything was wrong, which was a small blessing. When Colin finally called that evening, his voice was cold and detached. "I need some time to think," he said. "Don't call me." "What are you talking about?" I demanded. "You're just going to walk away from your family because of some dumb thing Macy said?" "Because of some dumb thing Macy said," he repeated, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Sure, Brittany, that's all it is." Then he hung up. The silence in the house was deafening after Colin hung up. I sat there with my phone in my hand, staring at the call log like it was going to give me answers. But all I could think was he knows. Or at least, he suspects. And I had no idea how I was supposed to fix it. The next couple of days were a blur. Colin didn't come home. I tried calling him again, but his phone went straight to voicemail. Macy asked where he was, and I told her he was on a work trip. She didn't question it. That's the thing about Colin. He's always been dependable, predictable. He's not the type to storm out and leave without an explanation. So if he was doing that now, it meant things were worse than I thought. I couldn't stop replaying Macy's words in my head. He's not even my real dad. The way she said it, so casually, like it was just another fact about her life. I wanted to scream at her, to ask her why she would say something so cruel, but I knew I couldn't. How do you explain to your 13-year-old daughter that the things she blurted out as a joke might blow up her whole family? On the third day, Colin finally came home. It was late, past 10, and I was sitting on the couch with a glass of wine, pretending to watch TV. I heard his car pull into the driveway, and my heart started racing. I wasn't sure if I was relieved or terrified. He came in quietly, like he didn't want to wake Macy. He didn't look at me as he walked past the living room, heading straight for the bedroom. I followed him, my bare feet silent on the carpet. "Colin," I said softly as I stepped into the room. He was pulling clothes out of the closet, tossing them into a duffel bag. My chest tightened. "Are you leaving?" I asked, my voice shaking. He didn't answer right away. He zipped the bag closed and finally turned to me. His face was calm, but his eyes were hard. "I need answers, Brittany," he said, "and I'm not staying here until I get them." I felt a wave of panic. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said, even though I knew exactly what he meant. "Cut the crap," he snapped, his voice low but sharp. "Is Macy my daughter or not?" "Of course she is," I said, my voice rising. "Why do you keep asking me that?" "Because I talked to Macy," he said, his tone cold. "I asked her where she got the idea that I'm not her dad, and you know what she said? She said you told her when she was little, that you said I didn't know the truth, and she wasn't supposed to tell me." I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. My mind raced, trying to come up with an explanation, a way to spin this, but nothing came. "She's lying," I said weakly. "You know how kids are, Colin. They make things up." "She didn't sound like she was making it up," he said, his voice tight. "And honestly, Brittany, I don't even care what Macy said. I want to hear it from you. Is she my daughter or not?" I opened my mouth, but no words came out. My chest felt like it was caving in. Colin's eyes narrowed, and he shook his head like he was disappointed but not surprised. "That's what I thought," he said quietly. He grabbed his bag and started to walk past me. "Wait," I said, reaching for his arm. "Where are you going?" "To my sister's," he said without looking at me. "Don't call me unless you're ready to tell me the truth." And then he was gone. The house felt emptier than ever. Macy was already in bed, completely unaware of the storm brewing around her. I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the spot where Colin's duffel bag had been. Part of me wanted to blame him. He was being irrational, blowing things out of proportion. So what if Macy wasn't his biological child? He'd raised her, hadn't he? He'd been her father for 13 years. What difference did it make? But another part of me knew I couldn't keep lying. Not forever. Colin was relentless when he wanted answers, and he wouldn't stop until he got them. The truth was going to come out eventually. The problem was, I wasn't sure I could handle the fallout. The next few days were a blur of texts and phone calls that went unanswered. Colin stayed at his sister's house, refusing to come home until I gave him some kind of explanation. I couldn't blame him. If I were him, I'd be pissed too. But even with everything that was unraveling, I couldn't seem to bring myself to come clean. The longer I kept quiet, the harder it was to admit the truth. I told myself I was doing it for Macy, for Colin, for our family. If I told him now, everything would change. Our whole life, everything we had built, would come crashing down. But the more I thought about it, the more I knew I was just trying to protect myself. I knew who Macy's real father was. I had known from the moment she was born. His name was Jared. He used to be an old coworker of mine. Some guy I met when I was still working at that marketing agency. Jared wasn't the kind of guy you'd take home to your mom, but he sure knew how to turn on the charm. We'd had a thing back then. a brief fling that was all about casual fun. He wasn't into commitment, never wanted to settle down, and definitely wasn't interested in being a father. But when I found out I was pregnant, I reached out to him, expecting some kind of support or even just a "hey, I'm here if you need me." But Jared wasn't there. I had to make a choice, and I chose Colin. He was steady, reliable, and he genuinely cared about me. I convinced myself that it didn't matter who the real father was. Colin was already there, already in the picture, and he would be the one to raise her. So I let it go, told myself it was the right decision, but deep down I always knew the truth. And now, as I sat in the silence of our house, it felt like the weight of that secret was about to crush me. I couldn't stop thinking about Jared. I hadn't spoken to him in years. Not since he made it clear he didn't want anything to do with me or the baby. I didn't blame him. We had never been serious, and I never expected him to come around. But knowing that he was the one who could have been Macy's father, and knowing that he had refused, stirred up a whole new level of anger and bitterness. I wasn't sure what to do with all of it. I knew I couldn't keep pretending this lie would last forever. The way Colin had looked at me the other night, his face full of distrust and disappointment, it broke me. But it also scared me. I had no idea what would happen if I told him the truth. If I admitted that the man he'd raised as his daughter for over a decade wasn't his at all. And it wasn't like I had any good way to explain it. How could I tell him I had kept this from him for so long? How could I justify the fact that, even now, part of me still wanted to keep Jared out of the picture, even though he was the one who should have been Macy's father? I couldn't even bring myself to tell Colin the truth about how everything went down between me and Jared. How Jared had rejected me when I told him I was pregnant, how he had made it clear he didn't want to be part of it. I couldn't blame him for that either. But I didn't want to admit it to Colin. I didn't want to admit that I had let Jared walk away, and that, in some twisted way, I had made peace with that. I started to think about how I was going to face Colin when he came back. He had already made it clear he wanted answers, and I didn't have any good ones. I was stuck between the urge to tell him everything and the fear of what would happen if I did. What if he left me? What if he couldn't look at me the same way ever again? What if Macy found out too? I had worked so hard to protect her from the truth, from the reality of who her father really was. I didn't want her to know. I didn't want her to see Jared as a possibility, because I knew he wasn't someone who would ever come around. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe keeping this secret was just as bad as anything else. I couldn't stop thinking about what I had done to Colin, about how I had kept him in the dark for so long. But then again, what was I supposed to do? I had made my choices, and now I had to live with them. When Colin finally came back, I still hadn't made up my mind. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know if I should keep pretending or finally tell him everything. But as I looked at him when he walked in that door, I knew one thing for sure: nothing would ever be the same. Colin walked through the door like he had nothing left to say to me, his eyes scanning the room as if he were looking for something that wasn't there. It was that same coldness he'd had when he left, but this time, there was something else behind it. His frustration, his hurt, his disappointment, all of it was written on his face. He stood in the doorway for a moment, taking in the sight of me sitting there, curled up in a chair with my arms crossed tightly around myself. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there, letting the silence drag on like a weight pressing down on both of us. Finally, he broke the silence, his voice low but steady. "We need to talk." I nodded, my heart pounding. I couldn't make myself look him in the eye. The guilt was suffocating. I knew that if I kept hiding the truth, if I kept lying to him, I was only digging the hole deeper. But I couldn't just blurt it out either. I couldn't tell him about Jared, not yet. I needed to figure out how to make this right, if that was even possible. "Colin," I started, my voice weak, unsure. "I never meant for this to happen. I didn't want it to go this far." "Then why didn't you tell me the truth?" He was starting to get frustrated, his voice rising with each word. "Why did you lie to me, Brittany? Why did you let me raise someone else's kid all these years without saying a word?" I felt my stomach turn. His words cut through me like a knife, and I couldn't bring myself to answer. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. "I trusted you," he said, shaking his head. "I've always trusted you. And now I don't know what to believe. You've been lying to me about something this big, and I don't know if I can ever trust you again." I closed my eyes, trying to hold back the tears that were threatening to spill over. I had made so many mistakes, so many wrong choices, and I had no idea how to make any of it right. "I know I messed up," I whispered, feeling the weight of the words like a lead ball in my chest. "But Colin, I never meant for you to find out like this. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know what to say." His eyes softened, but just barely. I could see the conflict in his expression. He wanted to believe me, he wanted to understand. But how could he? "You should have told me from the start," he said, his voice quieter now, but no less hurt. "I've been here, raising her, loving her like she's my own. And now I find out she's not even mine." I flinched at his words, even though I knew they were true. "I didn't want it to ruin everything," I said, finally finding the words I had been struggling to say. "I didn't want to lose you. I didn't want to lose what we had." "By lying to me?" he asked, his tone incredulous. "By keeping this from me for all these years? How could you think that was okay?" "I thought it was the right thing to do," I admitted, finally meeting his gaze. "I thought it was the best thing for Macy. I didn't want her to feel like she was different, like she didn't belong in our family." I could see the hurt in Colin's eyes as he took a step closer to me. He was still angry, still confused, but there was something else there, too. Something I hadn't expected. There was pity, maybe even a little bit of regret. "You don't get it, do you?" he said, his voice low. "It wasn't just about Macy. It was about us, about trust. You've taken everything we've built and thrown it away, and I don't know if I can fix that." The silence stretched out between us again. I wanted to apologize, to beg him to understand. But the truth was, I wasn't sure if I even understood myself. I had made so many excuses, rationalized everything in my mind to protect myself. I had convinced myself that it didn't matter who Macy's real father was, that I was doing the right thing by keeping Jared out of the picture. But now, standing here with Colin, I couldn't ignore it any longer. The truth had to come out. "I haven't told you everything," I said quietly. Colin froze, his eyes narrowing in suspicion. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. "Macy's father, it's not you, Colin, it's Jared. I'm sorry, I should have told you sooner." The words felt like a weight had just been lifted off my chest, but they also felt like a bomb that was about to explode. I watched as Colin's face drained of color. For a long moment, he didn't speak. "Jared?" he repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. "You're telling me that the whole time, all these years, Macy's father has been some guy who couldn't even bother to step up?" I nodded slowly, my heart breaking. "I was scared, Colin. I didn't know what else to do. I thought if I kept it from you, everything would be okay. But now I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to make it right." Colin just stood there, his expression unreadable, before he turned away from me. He walked over to the door, then paused with his hand on the knob. "I need some time," he said, his voice rough. "I don't know what to think anymore." And with that, he left. I collapsed onto the couch, feeling the weight of everything I had done. I had lied, I had kept secrets, and now everything was falling apart. I had no idea if I could ever fix this or if Colin would ever forgive me. But one thing was clear, the truth was out, and there was no going back. I didn't hear from Colin for days after that. I mean, it was a strange kind of silence that just dragged on. I knew he was processing everything, trying to figure out how to deal with me, with Macy, with all of it. I could feel him slipping away, though, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I hadn't just lost his trust, I'd shattered it. But I wasn't going to sit here and let him leave without a fight. Finally, he came back around, though it was clear he wasn't the same. He was distant, even more closed off than usual. It was like the distance between us had turned into an actual chasm. I could see the anger, the betrayal, still burning in his eyes, but now there was something else, a sense of finality, as if he was ready to just give up on everything. We were sitting in the living room when he dropped the bomb. He was quiet for a long time, staring at the floor like he was steeling himself for something. I was on edge, just waiting for him to speak, because I knew it wasn't going to be good. "I can't do this anymore," he said, his voice flat. "Macy isn't mine, she never has been, and I can't keep pretending like she is." I felt my stomach drop, the air between us went cold. "Colin? No," I whispered, almost pleading, but he wasn't having any of it. "I'm done," he said, the words coming out like a final verdict. "I'm done with this whole thing. You and your lies. I'm done raising someone else's kid. I'm done with the whole damn situation. I can't keep doing this. I don't even know who I am anymore." I wanted to argue with him, wanted to make him see reason. But how could I? I had done this. I had kept this secret for so long. I had led him into this mess, and now it was all falling apart. But then, the worst thing happened. Colin stood up from the couch, his face like stone, and I could see it in his eyes. He was ready to walk out. "Macy's not my responsibility anymore," he said, his words cold and cutting. "I'm done pretending." That was when I lost it. "You can't just walk away from her." I shot up from the couch, my voice sharp and frantic. "She's still your daughter. You can't just turn your back on her because of me. She's been your daughter for years. You've raised her. You can't just disown her like that." Colin shook his head, his jaw tightening. "She's not my daughter. Not anymore. I don't know what else to tell you." "Don't you dare!" I screamed, my heart pounding in my chest. A real man would take care of her. A real man wouldn't just leave a child because of some mistake that I made. "She needs you, Colin. She's been calling you Dad for years. You can't just throw that all away because you're mad at me." I could see the rage building in his eyes, and for a moment I thought he was going to explode. "You think you can guilt me into this? You think you can make me feel bad for what you've done? I don't owe her anything, Brittany. Not after everything. Not after this." I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself, but I couldn't. The words came out before I could stop them. "You owe her everything, Colin. You owe her a chance at a real life, at a family. You can't just walk away. Not like this." I was desperate, I knew. But I was also right. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about Macy, and I wasn't going to let Colin destroy the last bit of stability she had left. "I'm not doing this," Colin snapped. "I'm not playing this game anymore. She's your problem now." With that, he stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind him, leaving me standing there, stunned, breathless. I collapsed onto the couch, feeling like the entire world had just crumbled beneath me. I had screwed up everything. My marriage, my daughter's life, and now I was about to lose everything. But I wasn't done fighting yet. Colin might have walked out, but I wasn't about to let him just erase the life we'd built. I couldn't. So I called Macy into the room. "Macy, sweetie, come here," I said, my voice shaky. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to explain what had just happened. She walked in slowly, her eyes swollen from crying. She had been through so much already, and I couldn't help but feel like I was the one who had dragged her into this mess. "Mom?" she asked quietly, her voice small. "Listen, Macy, Colin is upset, but I want you to understand something," I said, taking her hand in mine. "You're still my daughter, no matter what. I don't care what Colin says or does. You're my girl, and that's not changing. We're going to figure this out together, okay?" She nodded, but I could see the confusion in her eyes. She wasn't a little girl anymore, and I knew she had questions, but I didn't have the answers. But as much as I tried to hold it together for Macy, I knew the truth. Colin might have walked out, but the real problem was me. I had made my choices, and now they were tearing everything apart. I couldn't blame him for wanting out, even if it broke my heart. So now, it was up to me. I had to pick up the pieces of this mess, even though I wasn't sure how. As the days passed, the tension in the house was unbearable. I could feel the weight of everything crashing down on me, but I still wasn't ready to face the full reality of what I'd done. Every conversation I had with Colin felt like it was pulling us further apart. I tried to apologize, tried to make him understand that I wasn't the person he thought I was. Maybe I wasn't, but it didn't matter anymore. Then, one morning, just before the sun was up, I heard a knock at the door. It was Colin. He was standing there with a suitcase, his face a mask of finality. He didn't say much, just that it was over. He couldn't do it anymore. He was done. I wanted to beg him to stay, to tell him everything would be okay, that we could fix it. But I didn't. I just stood there, silent, as he walked past me with his bags. "Macy's not mine, Brittany," he said, his voice breaking just slightly, but it wasn't enough to stop him. "You made me believe she was. You made me raise her. But I can't do it anymore. I'm done." And with that, he left. I stood in the doorway, frozen, staring at the empty space where he had been. My heart felt hollow, like the whole house was empty now. I could hear Macy's voice in the other room, and I knew the questions were coming. It wasn't long before she found me. "Mom," she whispered, standing in the doorway, her face a mix of confusion and hurt. Is he really gone?" I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. I didn't know how to tell her the truth. I didn't know how to explain everything I had done. She deserved the truth, but I wasn't ready to face it myself, let alone say it aloud. "I'm sorry, Macy," I said quietly, tears welling up in my eyes. "He's gone." Her face twisted in confusion. "But why? Where did he go? Is he coming back?" The question hit me like a punch to the gut. I didn't know how to answer it. Colin wasn't coming back. He couldn't. Not after everything. "He's not coming back, sweetie," I whispered, swallowing the lump in my throat. "But that doesn't mean you're not loved. You still have me." Macy blinked, a tear rolling down her cheek. "But who's my real dad then? If he isn't?" I felt my heart shatter. How was I supposed to tell her? How could I explain to her that the man she had known as her father wasn't really her father at all? How could I ever tell her the truth about who her real father was? I swallowed hard, my chest tightening. The truth was ugly, and I wasn't ready to face it. I don't know, Macy," I whispered, "but I'm here. I'm still here, and I'll always take care of you." But the truth kept clawing at me. The man Macy needed to know as her father wasn't Colin. He was someone else, a name I hadn't spoken in years, a face I'd buried deep in the past. It was a secret I didn't want to keep anymore, but I wasn't sure I could bear the weight of telling her. For now, though, I just held her, and we cried together. I tried to console her, but there was a part of me that knew this was it. This was the end of everything. Colin was gone for good. My marriage was over. My family, the one I had fought for, was gone. But I couldn't blame Colin, not really. I had pushed him to this point. I had lied, I had kept secrets. All my impulsive choices had led us here. I was the reason everything had fallen apart. And now, it was just me and Macy, left to pick up the pieces of a shattered life. I wasn't ready for the fallout, for the truth to come out, but I knew it would eventually. No one could live in a lie forever, not even me. I wasn't the victim here. I had made my choices. I had destroyed everything. And as I watched Macy wipe her tears and ask if things would ever be the same again, I couldn't bring myself to lie to her anymore. "No," I whispered. "Things won't ever be the same." And with that, the door closed on the life I had known, leaving me to face the consequences of